Hello and welcome to Sounds Heal Podcast. I am your host, Natalie Brown. Thank you for joining me as we continue to look into the fields of sound healing, sound therapy, and using sound for health and wellness. Today my guest is Silvia Nakkach. She is a Grammy-nominated musician, a former psychotherapist, composer, recording artist, and educator. She's the founding director of Vox Mundi School. The school is dedicated to teaching and preserving sacred music traditions. The school has centers in San Francisco Bay Area, Brazil, Argentina, and Japan. Nakash has spent her lifetime searching for the treasures that are all about the power of sound. And she's had many collaborations, degrees, and has studied with many people, including for over 30 years, the late Hindustani classical maestro Ali Akbar Khan. Nakash is also an author, writing scholarly articles and books, including Free Your Voice. I was first urged to connect with Silvia in the fall of 2018. I was taking a sound healing and craniosacral therapy class out in California with Dr. John Beaulieu, and he mentioned his collaborations with Silvia. I've stayed in touch with one of the students that also attended this class, and he recently went to one of Silvia's workshops in Santa Cruz, and he said, "You just have to connect with her. You've got to talk." So I was glad when Silvia agreed in her busy, complex schedule, just getting ready to travel, that she was able to have this discussion. So please enjoy my conversation with Silvia Nakkach. Silvia, what's one of your earliest memories, maybe in childhood, an influential or transformational experience that altered your understanding of sound and spirit?
My sonic biography, how did I start being connected with sound in the way I am now? It's really been a lifetime and an evolution of listening and deep listening and quantum listening. I think what I would say as to respond to your inquiry about my connection with sound from the beginning that I remember, it's what I mentioned in my book. I was in love when I was very young, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. I was really in love of the sound of the birds and nature. So for me, nature was the place where I would go and feel in another dimension. From very early age, sound allowed me to travel, and I'm a traveler, allow me to travel to an alternative, more expanded, more subtle dimension of reality, what we will call now texture of reality. So sound, when I was a child, was about the sound of the wind and the sound of specifically the songbirds. And I had a connection. I have like a dialogue with the birds. And it was like it was a spiritual practice, what we call now a spiritual practice. I would not tell anybody about it. It was my private connection. And I will be very disciplined. Every day I will go to the same little stairs and sit in this place outside the door and talk to my birds. And the birds will be my family, my secret, my sanctuary, my secret space. And I will talk to them and I will imitate them and I will imagine stories with them, playing house with the birds. So that was the beginning, being in love of songbirds and especially, Natalie, that they were not kind of periodic, like symmetric, like periodicity, like time, like the watch or the pulse, hopefully, and the metronome. No, the birds are open, so they talk to each other in a way that not necessarily has this particular periodicity, repetition. And I was amazed by that. I was always listening to the space in between, how long one bird will answer me or answer another bird. So that I never forgot. I think that was that is and was the foundation of deep listening for me, and that ended being and ended it me um, implementing and selecting from all my musical experience the voice as my communicator of sound, meaning and music. So I think the voice of the birds were the inspiration for me to concentrate and be so specifically immersed in all the powers of the voice, the potential, the creativity, the musicality of the voice. So I think birds, nature, listening to the breath and my breath. I remember making songs with my own breath when I was a child. So I think that was the beginning, nature, listening. And maybe I wasn't able to understand at that point the difference between hearing and listening. But then it's basically what I am teaching around the world and across the planet. I mean, I am teaching and helping people to discern between just hearing physically, accumulating waves, sound waves, uh, without any will, and listening, which is such a deep awakening awareness experience.
I have to ask, in that part of your book, For Your Voice, that section called My Secret Religion, when I was reading it, I've had people tell me when they were young, they would sing to themselves, perhaps, and most often when they were wandering, playing outside, exploring the woods. Without thought, they would be singing songs, um, and songs that were for coping or comforting. Just very simple melodies would come to them quite naturally when they were young. Would you consider that medicine melodies? And can you
Yeah.
explain that a bit? Songs that just appear. I guess over time, as people grow up, they might lose this connection with their voice and perhaps with nature. But is that what you would consider a medicine melody?
I would say first yes, and then I will go deeper into that. That we receive information from different textures and possibilities and connections of reality. Um, as humans, we listen and we hear, but sometimes we make connections and that are not conscious, completely conscious, but there's something in nature or something or an aesthetic experience that that in a way transmitted something to us. And if we are open, that's the connection. We have to be receptive to that specific, I would say, sonic or tone magic reality. So we listen, and then we become a conduit, uh, and then it expresses itself. It's delivered as a melody because melody is conduced and is the carrier of emotions. So basically, it's very emotional, but the way that is expressed to us without intuitive, without thinking about it, it becomes like medicine. It's like saying, okay, I'm listening to this. Oh my God, I'm listening to this melody that comes to me, and I need to to uh, to deliver this. I need to listen to hear that, to make it audible. It's something that wants to be expressed, and then what is expressed is a tonal configuration that is very simple, and it has the tendency to be repetitive, and it has the, consciously or not, intention of being liberating. So medicine melodies, when I use it, I actually think I was one of the first persons using that term that I know. It came from me. It's because it feels like it's a medicine, but more like an adaptogen, like an herb medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. It's something that I hear from nature, and I'm kind of unconsciously drinking, and then I need to share because it makes me so happy, and I think it's going to be very, very beneficial for people to listen to it. But in terms of construction, it's supposed to be a very simple tonal configuration of one line going up and one line going down. And normally what happens is that it starts with a tonal center and ends on the same tonal center, and likes to be repeated. It's circular. So the analytically means we are not making a musical analysis. Medicine melodies are circular melodic phrases. And if we wanted to make it more like transpersonal or therapeutic, we can say that they have the quality to convey a sense of freedom and release tension. So, and if we want to go into another reality, which is even more transpersonal, it feels like we have been in a state of divination. We receive information from another dimension that become wisdom. It's like wisdom music. Mm-hmm. It's like we are open to receive information from another dimension, and the melody becomes an entity. So that's going into high consciousness. So what we are saying again is, depending how you transmit, how you receive, and what is the intention that we have when we've been sung, S-U-N-G, we've been immersed in this melodiousness. I call it a spiritual melodiousness. Or a spiritual melodicism, I think it's in my book, spiritual melodicism. It's like something that, the frequency that you are connected in your spiritual radio. You're an antenna, you are receiving information, and you connect with the frequency of the divine or the frequency of nature. It's like, I always feel like we are radios, like transmitters and transducers. So if we get into that space of being open, the instrument that is a birthright, the natural, the primordial instrument is the voice. The voice will receive, we will receive by listening to another dimension, quantumly, and then boom, and then the voice wants to express and share. Now, what happened after is is very interesting. We have these medicine melodies, and we get used to receiving medicine melodies, and then people do ceremonies and they sing medicine melodies, and there's more receptivity for this kind of musicality, of spiritual musicality. And then what happened is like, then you feel in the time of when you return to silence, it feels like you've been guided, that you've been in a sacred space, and that is the part that has to be with spiritual growth, spiritual practice. So what do we do with what we receive and after we give it? There's all these different ways of discerning of, first we are connected and open to receptivity of the divine, becoming more what I call quantum listeners or virtuoso listeners, and we listen to melodic entities and we receive it, and the voice has the freedom to express them, and people are listening, hopefully, and what happened after. And that's the piece that I'm working now more. What happened after the moment, that sense of the becoming aware of the power of sound? What happens after we are blessed by that medicine melody? And that's a mystery.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I want to perhaps make a connection here. Now, you studied with Ali Akbar Khan for more than 30 years. And I was just thinking about ragas are considered to be a gift from divine beings, right? Through the medium of melody and emotion. And what's really interesting about ragas is that they're so complex and they're so freeing. I wonder if you think ragas perhaps are medicine melodies as well.
Well, they're, as you say very clearly, Natalie, they're a little bit more esoteric, more complex, and they not just come from nature and cosmic connections with light and nature, but also the ragas have a narration. The ragas are more like opera. They have a long life. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of the ragas and the mystery and what I call the addictive quality of ragas is that every time that you sing the same raga, it's going to be completely different. And this takes us to a place that, yes, there is what I think, and I think it's, I'm saying this very clearly for those that experience and know about, sing the ragas and are in that field. There is always, according to whoever is expressing and delivering and conveying the raga, this divine phrases, melodic phrases, there is always a particular melody that is what I call the DNA of each raga. Mm-hmm. Each raga has what we call a passport or a DNA that makes that raga completely different from any other raga. According to Ali Akbar Khan, I don't know, he was extremely abundant, but he said that there are 75,000 ragas, and he repeated that many, many times in my 30 years of being at his feet. So, and then now I am with other masters, the incredible, amazing caliber and value. But my point is, there is something in the raga that is very medicinal, and there is a particular melody that it makes that raga very special and different, but from others. But I wouldn't call it medicine melody, but I would call it the seed melody, where all the other melodies and all the variations and all the improvisation and all the possibilities of compositions will be explored. So the raga has seeds, and yes, the ragas are all about melody.
Mm-hmm.
The ragas are what I call the kingdom, the kingdom of melody. It's the it makes melody. Can I read something from my book?
Mm-hmm.
It's on the last, in the chapter 8. I think it's in the beginning. We are talking about a scale of quality of melody, and then you mentioned the ragas, which are my friends and who I live with, and then here this Oliver Messiaen. My thesis at Mills College was on Oliver Messiaen, the music of the birds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I studied so much because I had to write so much about it and listening. So Oliver Messiaen also lives here in my living room. Knowing that music is a language, shall seek at first to make melody speak. The melody is the point of departure. May it remain sovereign, the noblest element of music. So if you think about that, Oliver Messiaen lived in I know he passed away in 1992, and he was in a concentration camp, and he was in Peru, and he was in Lagos Verde. And there's something about that melody that is like a seed of possibilities. What we say in the seed is the plant for the whole plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a code. So within the seed melody, there is a code that if we are listening deeply, we can explore and create so much melodiousness, so much melody. And the ragas has rules, how to go up and down, how to go around, how to make notes longer than the other ones. And the most important part of the ragas is how we breathe the note. Mm. This is what I'm just learning. Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely fascinated because now I am more concentrated in the voice and the ragas. Before it was composition, mm-hmm. And songs and compositions. But now I'm very interested in the space, the breath, mm-hmm. and how connect the tone, and how lead the tone, how detach from a tone and make the silent space. So now, more and more as you develop as a listener, and, for me, my spiritual practice is singing the ragas. So now I am mostly singing Drupad. So understanding the intonation, pronunciation, devotion to each note, to each swara, to each, the swaras are the notes, but how that note fades into silence, the nav. So all this is what I'm interested now, seriously, like a new musician, like a child again. with bringing, we say in French, après coup, bringing all my experience with the composition, the ragas. So I know many ragas, but how you deliver each note and the space in between, and how you breathe the space, that is fascinating for me. And then, again, all depends, and this is the most important thing we are saying up to now, all depends who is listening. It's all about the Rasika. It's all about who is listening. It's so important. When I'm practicing alone, it's like, wow, you have to create an environment around you. I like sometimes to have a microphone and delays because I want to create a space. Mm-hmm. I want to be immersed in this kind of, sanctuary, because I feel like I'm singing to some kind of entities or divinities, and they are singing back to me. So who is listening is the next level of who is singing. Is that too complicated?
No, and it's almost a movement towards the subtle, a movement
Exactly.
more and more towards the subtle. And,
exactly.
In one of your articles, you mentioned that in the realm of consciousness, nada is the vibratory frequency rate of silence.
Yes.
Can you explain what you mean, and how can that be experienced in meditation or contemplation?
Well, this takes us to spanda and vibration. And if we are in a, and it's interesting because it's yoga. Well, we are talking yoga. They call it NAD yoga, but before this, and again, discernment. The inquiry is: I am sitting here, and I want to experience the vibratory quality of silence, and that we also call it NAD. But that requires a particular mindset, a particular consciousness expansion, and also, like a pre-assessment, requires believing that I am going to be connected with vibration and not just, down or whatever. That I can enter in a more subtle space. So that's part of my mindset. My mindset is created as a consequence or a result of how many times I do something, how much I believe in something, and how much I can cultivate my innate capacity for bhakti or devotion. So I'm sitting and I'm singing a note, and suddenly I realize that after I sing the note, especially if I had a drone or a long tone in the back of the, backing the note or accompanying the note, after I remain in silence, I am part of a vibratory experience that is completely different than when I was singing. So my whole body will start vibrating. My heart rate will change. My whole biological system will be entrained differently, and I will enter in a dimension that is much more subtle than my physical body. It seems like it's silent, but we don't know. We probably know. What we know is that silence doesn't exist as
right.
silence. There's always vibration. But I get so Pauline Oliveros, my divine first teacher and friend, she would say, it's like being quiet to a point of silence. So it's like saying, my mind, I am singing, I am expressing sound, or I am playing an instrument. And suddenly it's been a very full and embodied and delightful experience, and ends with silence. That silence, we call it fertile silence, fertile, abundant, mysterious, and at the same time, it's a silence where we connect directly with the vibration of life. I would say prana, life force. We become nature. And when we say always in Drupad and other various forms of music practices, music is in this world to quiet the mind, to make it sensitive to divine intervention, or at the same time, we can say in a more mainstream way, music is a way for us to know more about ourselves. Mm. And the silence after our delivery of sound is a way to know more about our vibratory essence, the nature of who we are. So music helps us to know who we are, connect us with, it's a mirror of ourselves without having to tell us anything. It's just the experience of sound, especially through the voice, of course, because the voice is the body. So it's the music through the voice is a way to know more about ourselves, and in a subtle way, to meet our vibrational field with embrace it with a sense of nature more than judgment.
I like, there is an example that you used that I thought was helpful, that another way to connect is to play a singing bowl and follow the ringing frequency until it completely fades, and that transports your mind towards deeper states of consciousness because it has a leading quality, right? It leads you into the silence and just gets you farther and farther into the silence as you hear something like a singing bowl fade away.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, there is something behind this, which is, it's again, I'm always using the quality of Saraswati, the goddess of sound, which is discernment. The main quality of Saraswati to discern from truth and false and all the different layers of possibilities of things. And the bowls are crystal or metal, but they're incredibly, they transmit so much sound and so many overtones, and they're so overpowered. Then the most important aspect of the practitioner is to learn how to play less, meaning the duration. This is what we need to learn, and I'm doing a training at the end of June in San Diego about how to train the facilitators not to get driven by the sound and start playing for people for an hour. Just playing for like a medicine melody, few minutes, like in ceremony, and then you stop. Let the silence connect with God, with divinity, with possibility, with creation. Because if someone is playing to me for an hour, well, I might fall asleep if I am very tired, or I might get tired, or I might get a pain in my neck, or I might want to leave. or our mind just say, okay, I came here, I have to be obedient. But I found myself having all these experiences, except when the practitioners plays for a few minutes and stops, and plays for a few minutes and stops. It's like saying, even if I'm not playing with melody, I'm playing with overtones. So we need to realize how much we can, the cellular body can absorb, and being able to allow for the space in between. And this is the next level that comes with listening, right? With listening. So that's the point. It's all beautiful. The bowls are getting more and more sophisticated. Now they're making them with gold. That's what they say. And stones of precious stones and things like that. But, or whatever. However, practitioners, if they listen deeply, they will play with more space. Because we want to enter in the experience of yoga, liberation of conditioning, liberation of, and we want to experience the nod, the vibratory quality of silence, which help us to integrate the experience. Think of Shavasana after a yoga class. Shavasana is when we lay down, and for me, is the most therapeutic aspect of my class. I go to yoga, all my life. I cannot live without yoga. And then we always wait for Shavasana because it's the space of silence and integration. And it's the space that allows, which is what Buddha said. What is the space? That which allows. What is sound? That which helps us to clear, to purify, to awaken. And what is listening? Listening is to become aware. Listening is a lifetime practice that depends on accumulating experience with sound. And then sound is the very intelligence and culture, and we need the space to integrate all that. Mm-hmm. That's why we want more silence, meditation.
Yeah, I think what you're saying perhaps to practitioners is about pace, pause, and texture,
yes,
and the breath to get them deeper and deeper into the space for listening and sound. Mm-hmm.
Another way to think about it is to take the sound and the voice as a communicator of sound as a journey, and the melody, especially if it's raga, which has a particular connection with cosmic and cosmic consciousness. The ragas and the melodies will be like the poetry of sound. The highest level of creativity is poetry. The Vedas clearly talk about that. I mean, the highest level of metaphor and the gateway to art as an experience of truth and nature is poetry. So, the way to answer your question is, if we help ourselves and others to understand the difference between hearing and listening, vibration and sound, melody and rhythm, textures of tonal textures, melody and harmony, and all these different things, we can help people to be more aware of what they want to listen. And listening is awareness of what we hear and creates our reality, creates our culture, creates our relationships, creates our environment. So deep listening and listening carefully will help us to, will protect us from being in places and spaces that are not beneficial for us. The space in between that we are talking, the pause, the silence in between, it's the sign, the manifestation that we are listening. This particular spaces that I'm doing when I'm talking to you help me to understand how we can listen together. I'm learning all this from being a practitioner of Raga and Drupa. So I'm learning how to listen deeply by practicing music as yoga, not just as creating music, considering that I'm mostly a composer. But when I'm a composer, I first need silence, and I take breaks of silence in between everything I write. And in those breaks, in those spaces, is where I receive the information.
Mm-hmm.
So the same like when someone is playing a ball, if they can handle stay a few minutes, maybe sometimes it's just 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes in meditation. Wow. You know, even if there is an anxiety going on because you want just to play, people just want to play, right? Relax. But then we are learning how to self-regulate our anxiety. So that's why singing this particular music that I'm singing now is helping me to regulate my breath, to accumulate more life force or prana. It's helping me to shape my sounds differently, my pronunciation. And I'm not talking about tomorrow I'm going to perform this. I'm learning music to become a better person. And actually, it's not even learning; I'm just practicing, which is different. So silence is important, and is the next level of who is listening. And there is a difference between being quiet and being aware of silence, or being distracted, right? It's all about the scale of quality that we are present, mindful, being in the here. It's all about the scale of quality of how we are, how we participate with what we are doing, especially with sound, because sound is so big. Sound is huge. And it could be very emotional as well. So how we self-control the emotionality within sound, and that's where the concept of rasa comes to be in Indian classical music and art and aesthetics. How we understand the emotions in the experience of music as basically aesthetic emotions, universal emotions. It's not about me, but I can release something and feel completely relaxed after. And that relaxation, what I love about the relaxation of singing beautiful music, that sense of being sung by or wow, God, this is so, so enriching, so nurturing, that I feel humble.
Mm.
You know, I want to, share this with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of help. That's help. That's healing. I want to share this. This is good. It's not just for me. So the silence will take us to that experience of expansion of consciousness, growing up as listeners and practitioners, and realizing the poetry of within the practice that we do, the poetic aspect, um, the imagination. Uh, uh, Again, we always get to the subtleties of it, you know.
And how could somebody that has no experience or knowledge of ragas or mantras, how can they free their voice without having that knowledge? Are there things that they can do to just trust and be present and let it go, even without knowledge of ragas and mantras?
Well, what comes to me without thinking, intuitively, it comes to me the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Um, Buddha means being awakened and being aware, in the sense that doing it, knowing knowing what you want to do. That's the first thing,
Mm-hmm.
and do it. Knowing that you're knowing. My teachers always say, my teacher Namkai Norwood will say, knowing it, being aware of your capacity, how much you can handle it. So it's a sense of, my capacity was to get up to mantra, not to raga, but then or kirtan, not to raga, But you know what? There is a wholeness behind all this. If you do it in a familiar way, I in my book I always say my best friend is dharana, meaning single pointed attention and familiarity. So I am doing this so often that becomes my home, the home of myself, my spiritual development, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
my development as a better human. So you do it often, and then you need a sangha. You need a group of people that support that entice, that ignites that. At least 2-3 times a month, once a month, whatever you can handle and whatever you can have. But you need a group of people that nurtures the practice. Sometimes they're students, sometimes they're teachers. And Guru Dharma, and the Dharma is the teachings. The teachings, you want to learn something, repeat, and then go to the next level. So you have the teachings, you have, the Guru is your capacity to embody the teachings and be honest about repetition, japa, doing it more often, on, bringing the teachers inside you, and use the teachings to awakening yourself, to become more present. And then you need a sangha, and that's it. A group that supports you. That's why we do retreats. I realize that singing lessons they're out of, how can I say, they could be helpful, but what we really need is immersion. So music needs immersion, means a retreat, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, where you are with a group of people that then become your music family and your music mind, help you to empower the muscles of your musical mind. So that's my answer to your question. We need a sangha. We need a group of people that will help us to sustain the practice. And then hopefully we have a guru or a teacher that we trust, we believe, and we honor. And that is bhakti. And that's the part that is the most complicated, the most complex because bhakti is energy. It's so kind of the opposite of narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I never said that before. Bhakti is a natural sense of awareness. Is loving, unconditional, someone that is giving you something that makes you feel so good, and trusting that person forever. And don't worry if that person does something that maybe you don't like, because that person gave you the key to develop and cultivate your unconditional love. And bhakti is a very, very, very important aspect. I call it the DNA of a practitioner. Sometimes I'm so sorry, like people are incredible and I love them so much, and I see their capacity. I have millions of students, not millions, but thousands around the world, and I see the capacity and I see the possibilities, but the bhakti is not awakened. I cannot teach you bhakti. I can teach you anything else, but it has to be your trust, your energy. It's like the shaman. The shamans are the real good shamans. I grew up with them. They have that. Their sense of bhakti is their belief system. The guru, the great masters. So bhakti helps us to survive. It's a survival, especially when you are when you are an adult. You need something that is not just a person to maintain your unconditional love in what you're doing.
As you've been all over the world, it seems like you've lived many lifetimes in this lifetime. As you've devoted preserving sacred musical traditions, is that kind of what you've found to be universally true, this bhakti as the healing power of sound? Or
yes,
yeah,
yes, but not. I just came from the ashram with my dear friend and Swami Sita Ramananda, and I always talk about bhakti. And I was attending another event of bhakti last weekend, and I'm continuously reinventing, reframing, revisiting this, because sometimes it's painful, because my teacher passed away. So where do I put that unconditional love? Oh, my teacher passed away in 2009. I felt like a lost soul for a while. We all felt that way when Ali Akbar Khan Baba disappeared from this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly, we realized that he gave us so much, that is inside. And I'm teaching, and suddenly I get a download from my teacher,
mm-hmm.
And it was so powerful that I could see him around. And then slowly I started realizing, well, it's time for me to do another reincarnation and concentrate more in the voice of the raga. And then I decided to commit myself forever to Drupad. But bhakti is what makes you grow. But it's not about you. It's not about me or you. It's about bhakti is with the child that we have when we are a child. We believe that that doll talks to me. Bhakti is the baby, born baby, just born, that goes directly to the breast of the mother. That kind of attraction, and it's almost like abstract love. because sometimes we love something that we cannot have. That's emotion. But we still believe that it's there. And in Portuguese, we have a beautiful word for that, saudade. Saudade. It's very powerful. But more and more, I wouldn't say bad, but however, the culture that we are living now, the whatever is happening around the planet and the world, and this particular time in civilization is, how can I say, we have to be a little bit more careful about not getting codependent on bhakti because of a particular tradition. Bhakti is only Rama or Krishna. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, we have to be able to realize that bhakti is the DNA of unconditional love for anything. Jazz. I teach my students whatever they want, whatever they are listening. Even music that I even don't know. If someone loves, a kind of music that I even don't know, I learn from them. Because the point is where you direct your listening and your attention. Because listening is attention. And if you love that, this is where I'm going to concentrate, how to accumulate more prana, more love, more concentration in what you love. I cannot teach raga to someone that doesn't love it.
Mm-hmm.
My mother never liked ragas. How can I sing ragas in front of my mom? She would put her to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So listening, again, we come back to that. But what I'm learning is that it's almost like a sensuality. I sense what is the quality of and the capacity and the experience of bhakti of this particular student or person. And if it's abundant, I help for that to be more cultivated and have the right direction. But sometimes, they just put it on me or them, or they want me to teach that. I can't. No one can teach you that. I mean, we give them. So bhakti is the seed that happens when Shiva and Shakti unite, embrace each other. Shiva as the ground, Shakti as the movement of creativity. And bhakti creates. Bhakti loves. Bhakti breathes. Bhakti makes us aware of not being alone. So that's where bhakti is. And that's where my intention is. But I don't put it in a particular music or tradition because I don't know how to do that. I'm my daughter is a family that live all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so my world is very, I live in Africa, Europe, South America, India, United States, now Japan. I mean, wow. Mm. And I love to see how people love differently, but bhakti is attraction, and we need that to wake up in the morning. Mm-hmm. Now we do retreats to help people with that, to help ourselves with that. We have to do long retreats. So I have a long retreat that I do for the past 25 years in California, where I live, which is the Santa Cruz retreat, which is fantastic because that's where we work with bhakti and accumulation of prana and all kinds of possibilities to develop, to support the capacity of making sound divine. Mm-hmm. And then I take people to India every year for 2-3 weeks to study with amazing masters and myself. And I take people every year to Japan and Brazil, where I kind of grew up part-time. So basically, we travel the voice and we travel the sound, and that helps us to expand our consciousness and listening capacities.
Mm-hmm. So almost creating a space to be a conduit for
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I record, I am a composer, so I love to record where I listen.
Mm-hmm.
So at least every other year I do a recording with amazing friends that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So I practice Drupad. This is my normal life. I practice Drupad, chanting and singing and sounding. And then I'm planning some recordings, and then I travel around the world offering concerts and teachings on how to free the voice and the secret sound, which would be and unlocking the code of bhakti.
Mm.
And it's working. And I really like to go to different. Now, next week, I'm going to New York, which I have a class. I create also curriculum for academic centers, universities, and wellness.
Yeah.
Holistic centers like Open Center in New York, and I coordinate and help consult with the curriculum. I invite teachers that are amazing to teach sound healing. And then here in California, I am doing it now for specifically facilitators. I'm doing training for facilitators in San Diego at Soul of Yoga. And then my main concentration point is Santa Cruz, because that's when I invite everybody that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like a whole ensemble of musicians and students and newcomers, and we all become a community. And we give a community to people. We give a sangha to people, which is so important. And then India, India is my mother, and and India is where I go and expand my capacity, my possibilities, my listening. And now I have a guru, another musical teacher that I want to follow for as much as I can. It's kind of reawakening my voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a student.
Yes.
So I like to ask you some questions too.
Yeah.
So your experience was and is as a violinist, and meaning a string instrument.
Yes.
And then how your musical experience as a musician develop or convey now your interest in sound and therapeutic possibilities of sound or healing sound.
Well, initially I was just tuned into playing it right. Just being, it did take a lot of discipline and practice to get the technical ability to be a skilled violinist. So there is that complexity to it. But you get to that point, just like Ragas, where it's so freeing that you just let go, and finally learning to let go of notes on music on a sheet of music, and just actually using playing as a meditation, and just what comes out. Just actually sit and meditate with the violin, what flows out of me, and just be very present with it. Once I started doing that, I could tune my intention, I could tune what I was feeling, and kind of release it to the world or to other people, or help myself through playing the violin. So now what I'm doing is very intentional. There's purpose. I tend to say no to a lot of things that I used to do, whether it's bands or record. I love to play all styles of music, but it's more of a devotional treatment.
Beautiful bhakti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your bhakti got reactivated.
Yes. And I had it when I was very, very young. I remember when I was a young child, I started violin when I was 4. It was present then. I understood it, but kind of lost it. I guess maybe my own schooling was very competitive, and conservatory training and education doesn't lend itself to that. So it kind of got dampened until I listened to myself again. Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, I always had bhakti. I always was like a fanatic of music and musicians and followed them all over the world, and like a groupie sometimes. But when I was in my teens, but I always had that. But what happened is that when I discovered Indian classical music, I was an opera singer and Renaissance singer, and I was, very, very, like serious performer. But bhakti was not there, because as you say, is you compare yourself, and the paper is there in front of you, and there's so much tension, and they kind of there's not the discernment about love, what you're doing is not very clear. It's more hard work. But bhakti also requires effort. See, the point is bhakti needs to be disciplined towards, and that's when listening comes to be, in terms of, okay, my bhakti is my engine, my energy, it's like an engine. And I need to drive it to the right place. I need to know where to put it. The direction of my listening is very important.
Yes.
And sometimes people don't know where to put it, and or I I have a divine student I adore, and she helps me a lot with other things. And then I say to her, you have too much bhakti, but we need to. But you're singing, but we need to direct it now to listening to your tuning. You need to now it's intonation. So bhakti needs to be disciplined in some form. And then comes the point of sangha, of who is supporting your bhakti, and how you unfold it, how you support it, how you maintain it, and not because it can dry. And many people that I see, especially in my classes at the university, they're incredible musicians. Even my divine late husband, he was incredible. Sometimes he was so tired of playing that I told him, you have bhakti deficiency. It's all that. They lost the interest because they have to play so much. And again, the spaces in between, the silence, the meditation, the sound that is long. And like a lot of the music of Messiaen has that quality, like prayer, So it's good to have a container for bhakti. That's the point. When bhakti loses the container, it's difficult. And I help people with that a lot. I'm pretty good at figuring out. They call me treasure finder. And the treasure is the bhakti, And then we need to move it and figuring out how to indulge that imagination, that fantasy, that poetic love. I always say indulge in the imagination of the poet is the way that we move. We evolve bhakti. but it's a very innocent thing. It's bhakti is what children have. That's why we love them. So I think that the center of this wonderful dialogue we are having is we got to the right place, which is how we recognize, awaken, because it's innate, develop and find the right channel for this unconditional love, this innocent love, to where we want to be and do in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And if his music is great, because music is so big and so abundant, and if it's sound, wow, it's even bigger, because sound is the universe. It's vibration permeates all things. So, but it's a protection.
Mm-hmm.
Bhakti is a protection.
And I think that one other emphasis is, and to kind of find those deeper and deeper layers, is listening. One thing that
Exactly.
that helped me immensely to get more in touch is just the simple practice of focusing on sounds that are near to me, far away, the silence between each layer. I got more sensitive to everything.
Yes.
To everything.
Yeah, we call that sonic meditations in our practices. We have 172 practices we do of sonic meditations and sound meditations, yogic meditations, and not meditations that work with that exactly what you're doing, proximity and different sounds that we listen, and then we write down. We do a sound journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that with Colleen Oliveros for many years, going around the country and listening overnight in a tent in amazing parks, like amazing places. And the next day, we will write down everything we heard, or we will go to places that have a special kind of reverberance and chant and sing and see how the voice becomes expansion and space. Sound is in the beginning of all manifestations, and space is what makes sound manifest. So the space is what we can choose. Where is the space that we want to manifest this particular sound? And when we want to just listen to what we just did. And that is like listening to people better. And the voice is a great vehicle, because the voice, we all have a voice. And sometimes it's tired. Like now my voice is tired because I did 2 sessions before I talked to you, 2 Skype sessions, one in Saudi Arabia, the other in China. You have to talk Skype. And then, but like my voice is tomorrow at night it's going to be better. And then tomorrow, if I practice, it's going to be great. It's just to become familiar with your instrument and make it free of your judgment. It's just hold it like a baby, And then, that's where the voice is. The voice is a beautiful, divine instrument. We want to take care of it and know it and becoming very familiar and hold it like a baby. Give it to the voice what the voice needs. And the voice talks to us, So here you have someone that has many, many, many academic degrees and credentials talking magic.
Yeah.
The voice talks to us. But it's like that, you get poetic. And the poetry is subtlety. It's enhancing the sensibility of the subtle in everything we do or think. So thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
It's been an extraordinary, wonderful pleasure to talk to you.
You too. Thank you so much.
the Santa Cruz retreat, it's, if you have the time, it's the best thing I ever created. And it's extraordinary. And because it's like being in heaven. The place is a monastery. No, it's not a monastery. It's a school of magical arts, Tibetan artists and meditators that are dressed like us, and they're not monastic, and they make sculptures and food, and they are not monks, but they are living there. There's only 10 people living there for 35 years. And it's a space of Lama Tarchin, which is one of the greatest poets and artists. He passed away. So I've been doing there. No one bothers you, and people make lifelong connections. So if you have time, you come. But just know that I would love to meet you and
I would love
be
to
in
meet
touch.
you. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.
You
Bye-bye.
too, and safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Sounds Heal Podcast. You could keep up to date by going to soundshealstudio.com, on Facebook, Sounds Heal Studio. You can listen to new music and podcasts monthly on YouTube, Sounds Heal Studio, Natalie Brown. Be well and stay tuned.